I wandered through the labyrinth of shelves of the local library, my fingers trailing over the spines of ancient tomes and war novels, seeking something new yet ancient, something that whispered of forgotten tales. That's when I found it. Tucked away in the most neglected corner of the library, almost as if it was hiding, was a book unlike any other I had seen before. The book was old, its leather cover cracked with age, and it bore no title on its spine. Curiosity piqued, I carefully opened it to reveal pages yellowed by time, filled with strange symbols and languages that danced before my eyes. The title, Whispers from the Forgotten Ages, was inscribed in an elegant archaic script on the first page. It contained tales and characters from various ancient mythologies, some of which I had never encountered in my studies. I borrowed the book, an inexplicable urge driving me to delve into its mysteries. That evening, in the solitude of my room, I began to read. The stories were mesmerizing, speaking of gods and monsters, of heroes and villains, in a narrative that felt eerily alive. As I delved deeper into the book, a sense of unease crept over me, a feeling I attributed to the vivid imagery and the unsettling nature of the tales. Unbeknownst to me, that book was about to become a gateway to a realm of nightmares that would blur the lines between reality and fiction. That night, as I surrendered to sleep, the first of many dreams began, marking the start of a journey into a world I never knew existed, a world that now haunts every moment of my waking life. The first dream was vivid and unsettling. I found myself standing in a dense, ancient forest, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. Around me, the trees seemed to whisper in a language I couldn't understand, their leaves rustling like hushed conversations. It was then that I saw him, a figure from the book, a spectral warrior adorned in armor that seemed to be forged from the very shadows around us. He spoke in a voice that was both a growl and a whisper, words that I couldn't comprehend yet somehow felt familiar. The dream was so real that when I awoke, I could still feel the chill of the forest air on my skin. I tried to dismiss it as just a nightmare, a product of spending too much time immersed in the book's eerie tales. But the dreams persisted, night after night. Each dream introduced a new character from the book, each more menacing than the last. There was a witch with eyes like burning coals, a serpentine creature with a human-like smile, and a child with a laugh that echoed with malice. These figures began to invade my waking thoughts, their whispers echoing in my mind during the day. Sleep became a source of anxiety. I was exhausted, my mind constantly racing, trying to find meaning in the dreams. My friends noticed the dark circles under my eyes and my jumpy demeanor, but how could I explain that characters from an ancient book were haunting my dreams? The line between reality and the dream world began to blur. I started seeing shadows move in the periphery of my vision, hearing faint whispers when I was alone. I knew something was deeply wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to part with the book. It was as if it had a hold on me, its ancient pages binding me to these nightmarish visions. In a desperate attempt to find answers, I started researching the book. To my dismay, there was no record of its existence anywhere. It was as if the book had appeared out of thin air, its origins shrouded in mystery. That's when I decided to seek help from the one person who might know something about this enigmatic tome, Mrs. Halloway, the elderly librarian who had spent her life amongst the dusty archives of our town's library. I approached Mrs. Halloway with a mixture of hope and trepidation. She was a small, frail-looking woman with an air of wisdom that seemed to transcend her years. Her eyes, behind thick glasses, were sharp and perceptive. When I mentioned the book, Whispers from the Forgotten Ages, her expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "Ah, that book," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I wondered if it would resurface. "It's not just a collection of stories, you know. It's a relic of a time best left forgotten." Mrs. Halloway revealed that the book had a rumored history of unexplained occurrences, and was believed to be linked to the supernatural. She warned me to be cautious, that some things, once awakened, are not easily put to rest. Her words only fueled my need to understand what was happening to me. The more I delved into the mysteries of the book, the more the boundary between dreams and reality seemed to fray. Shadows in my room seemed to move with a life of their own, whispers in an unknown language followed me in empty hallways, and I would catch glimpses of the book's characters in mirrors and reflective surfaces, always just out of sight, but unmistakably there. Fear and fascination became intertwined. I started taking notes, trying to find patterns or meanings in the dreams. The characters seemed to be leading me towards something, a narrative that was slowly unfolding in my subconscious. Then things escalated. Objects in my room began to move on their own, and I would wake up to find pages of the book turned, as if someone had been reading it. My dreams grew more intense, with the characters becoming more aggressive, as if urging me towards an unknown goal. I realized I was dealing with something beyond my understanding, something ancient and malevolent that had latched onto me through the book. The fear that gripped me was paralyzing, but I knew I couldn't face this alone. I returned to Mrs. Halloway, desperate for her help. Together, we started combing through old archives and forgotten texts, looking for anything that could shed light on the book and how to break its hold over me. We discovered references to a ritual, long forgotten, that was believed to bind spirits to objects. It seemed that the characters in the book were not mere figments of imagination, but spirits trapped within its pages. As we unraveled the mystery, the occurrences around me intensified. It was clear that whatever was bound to the book did not want to be discovered. But I was determined to end this nightmare, to break free from the grip of these spectral entities. The final piece of the puzzle was the ritual to seal the book's power, a counter-ritual that Mrs. Halloway believed could trap the spirits within the pages once more. Armed with this knowledge, we prepared to face the unknown, to confront the shadows that had crept into my life, and return them to the darkness from whence they came. The night we decided to perform the counter-ritual was stormy, with thunder rumbling like an ominous drumroll. Mrs. Halloway and I sat up in the library, the book laid out on an ancient wooden table surrounded by candles. The air was thick with tension, and the pages of the tome seemed to rustle impatiently. As Mrs. Halloway began chanting the words of the ritual, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. Darkness enveloped us, and for a moment, there was I felt a pull, a compulsion to open the book. As I did, the characters leapt from the pages, manifesting in the room. The spectral warrior with his shadowy armor, the witch with her burning eyes, the serpentine creature, and the child with the haunting laugh, they were all there, more terrifying than they had ever been in my dreams. They spoke in unison, their voices a cacophony of desperation and anger. They needed me, they said, to complete a ritual that would free them into the physical world. The temptation to succumb was overwhelming, their promises of power and knowledge enticing. But amidst their seductive words, I saw the truth in their malevolent eyes. They were not just seeking freedom, they were seeking dominion. With every ounce of strength I had, I resisted their temptations. I focused on Mrs. Halloway's voice, her chanting steady and unwavering. The characters advanced, the room shook as if the very foundations of the library were being challenged. Books fell from shelves, and the air crackled with an unseen energy. It felt as if the world itself was splitting at the seams, the boundary between the realms of the living and the spectral dissolving. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the chaos ceased. The spirits screamed in unison, a sound that tore through the night, and then they were sucked back into the book, their forms collapsing like shadows dispelled by light. I slammed the book shut, and the room fell into a deafening silence. The candles flickered back to life, casting a warm, reassuring glow. Mrs. Halloway and I were breathless, our hearts pounding in unison. We had done it. The spirits were sealed once again within the pages of the book. The threat was over, but the echoes of that night would linger in my mind forever. In the days that followed, the library returned to its usual state of tranquil silence, but the memory of that night lingered in every corner. Mrs. Halloway and I worked together. We placed it in a secure section of the library, locked away behind a glass case with a warning label detailing its history and the danger it possessed. Life slowly started to return to normal for me. The relentless exhaustion that had plagued me was replaced by a cautious relief. My dreams were no longer haunted by the characters from the book. Yet, the experience had left an indelible mark on my psyche. I found myself jumping at shadows, a lingering paranoia that perhaps it wasn't truly over. Despite the ordeal, my fascination with folklore and ancient tales remained, though now tempered with a newfound respect and caution. I continued my studies, but I steered clear of anything that felt too obscure or ominous. Mrs. Halloway became a mentor and a friend. We would often discuss literature and the mysteries of the world, though we carefully avoided topics that veered too close to the supernatural. She had seen much in her years, and her wisdom was a guiding light in the aftermath of the darkness we had faced together. As time passed, the memory of the incident began to feel like a distant dream, a nightmarish fantasy that had somehow bled into reality. But there were moments, fleeting and chilling, that reminded me it was all too real. Sometimes, when I passed by the library at night, I would pause, a feeling of unease washing over me. It was in these moments that I thought I heard something, a whisper, barely audible, calling my name from within the library walls. Each time, I would quicken my pace, a silent prayer in my heart that whatever remained of the spirits in the book would stay bound to its pages. The experience had taught me that some mysteries are better left unexplored, and some books are better left unread. The line between legend and reality is thin and easily crossed, and once crossed, there is no going back. The weeks turned into months, and the eerie events surrounding the ancient book began to fade into the background of my life. Yet, the library, once a place of solace and discovery, now held a subtle undercurrent of unease for me. I found myself avoiding the section where I had first discovered whispers from the forgotten ages, as if fearing that some remnant of its power might still linger there. The dreams had ceased, and my life had regained a semblance of normality, but the experience had altered me. I viewed the world with a more cautious eye, aware of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown. The whispers and shadows that had once plagued my every waking moment were gone, but the memory of their presence remained, a silent reminder of the night when reality had unraveled before my eyes. Occasionally, I would meet with Mrs. Halloway, our conversations a mix of mundane library matters, and cautious references to that night. We never spoke directly of what had happened, as if acknowledging it might somehow invite it back into our lives. But there was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared knowledge of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of reality. One evening, as I was passing by the library on my way home, a chill ran down my spine. The building, with its darkened windows and imposing structure, seemed to watch me, an inanimate guardian of ancient secrets. For a moment, I hesitated, a part of me tempted to go inside, to see the book once more, to reassure myself that it was still locked away. But I resisted the urge, reminding myself that some doors, once opened, can never be fully closed. I walked away, the faint sound of whispers trailing behind me, a ghostly echo of the past. In my heart, I knew that the book's influence was no longer a threat, but the experience had left a lasting impression. The world was full of mysteries, some beautiful and wondrous, others dark and better left undisturbed. As I continued down the street, the library receding into the distance, I realized that the true resolution wasn't in forgetting or completely overcoming what had happened. It was in accepting that there are things in this world beyond our understanding, and sometimes, the wisest course of action is to acknowledge them, learn from them, and then let them go. The story of the ancient book became a part of who I was, a chapter in my life that I would carry with me always. It was a reminder of both the fragility and the resilience of the human spirit, a testament to the power of facing one's fears and emerging stronger on the other side. As I looked up at the stars twinkling in the night sky, a sense of peace settled over me. The world was vast and mysterious, filled with endless possibilities and paths yet to be explored. And I, with a heart both wary and wondrous, was ready to face whatever lay ahead.